You might find this impossible to believe, but I believe that almost all animals on Earth are destined to eat only fruit forever, and that includes ocean life. And hear me out. So, personally, this is my personal anecdote, and then I'll go into the actual evidence. So I lived in the Amazon jungle for a couple of years, maybe like 3 years total. And there was this river along the, not the Amazon, but another sort of major one in Ecuador. And I witnessed firsthand, and especially from the family that I was with, who told me that most of the fish eat the falling berries that fall from the trees into the river. And so here's my extrapolation to the oceans. Here's all the coastal aquatic plant biomes that exist on Earth. Salt marshes, mangrove forests, seagrass meadows, tidal flats, mud flats, coastal lagoons, estuaries, coastal swamps, coral reef lagoons with seagrasses and algae, beach dune wetlands, and brackish wetlands. There's a list of 10, and I'm sure you could even probably categorize more of them. And here's the thing. So I'll go prehistoric, and then I'll go futuristic. Prehistoric, many animals fed on algae from hydrothermal vents. In fact, the first ever animal species documented was a vegan. It ate algae from hydrothermal vents. And also, the first plants actually grew in water, and they branch out onto land. So the history of life itself is rooted in the consumption of plants. Of course, the Cambrian explosion, animals did eat each other, but this doesn't have to be necessary. This is not natural and necessary. This is devolutive and unnatural. See, there's a timeline of events. Almost all species on Earth have went extinct, and this is because they're not eating only fruit forever. And maybe you will go extinct eating only fruit forever as well, but it may be extended in much longer periods. And so, let's talk about the future. Most of these plant aquatic biomes along oceans are in habitable zones, like in more habitable areas, less tundra, less cold climates. But with the technologies of the future, by transforming Earth into a tropical paradise through things like hydrodomes and terraforming and plant abundance, especially, it's already irreversible basically to reverse the ice caps. And there were a lot of periods on time in Earth, like during Pangea, when the ice caps were very little or not at all. So they don't have to exist. Yes, towards the poles would be very difficult, but this animals like penguins and polar bears and whales that live along the poles are there out of desperation and survival. They went there because they found they were able to get away from predators, and like the polar bear, for example, found the other animals to eat because there was nothing else really. And so when you go right near the poles, even if it's destined to be cold there, those animals will naturally come closer to the equator when resources are abundant. Right now, there are pretty much sources on Earth. Most of the world is dominated by sources because humans have destroyed most of the world. And there's a major difference between sources and resources. And so when we have a Edenic paradise on Earth, this will cause a lot of plant biomes to surround almost all coasts along the Earth land, which will have an abundance of fruit available to all the ocean life. Boom!